Ken, welcome back to the Way Champions podcast, my friend. It's great to see you.
Thanks, John. Glad to be here.
Well, that ear-to-ear smile that you're known for is maybe a little bigger these days after unprecedented success in the Olympics and Paralympics recently with USA Hockey sweeping para men's and women's gold medals. I mean, you can pat yourself on the back a little bit, right? That's you guys are a 20-year overnight success.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Look, I mean, like anything else, a lot of people. We obviously have some great athletes. We have some wonderful coaches and staffs around those teams specifically, but then there's a really good support infrastructure, and then certainly the grassroots system that we have is made changes over time and allowed us to, actually have players and people of that ilk at the highest level. So we are in rarefied air. We're the first country to sweep all three Olympic medals and got a big target on us now. But for at least the next month or so, everybody's pretty happy around here until we get to the next competition,
To
you
the
know?
next competition. Well, I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's the thing, right? Like the American football coach John Madden said, winning's the best deodorant, right? And so when you win,
Oh,
nothing
yeah.
stinks. But it's also really important that you don't rest and you examine, right? Like that we don't have an outcome bias either, right? That we won, so we ignore the things that aren't right, or we
100%.
lost and we're overly critical on a lot of the good stuff we're doing. I mean, this is the importance, especially in the sport development space like you.
Oh, for sure. Again, we were, look, those games could have gone either way. There were two of them were in overtime, and there are, just our case in point with our men. The Four Nations the year before, we lost to Canada in an overtime, and we had our opportunities, and there were categories and statistics that, you look at the game and you go like, well, geez, I thought we outdid Canada at some level in those games, just not the one that counted on the scoreboard. And maybe on this one, we weren't as, again, close game all the way. They certainly Canada was stretches of where they were the better team, but at the end of the day, it goes, who's on the scoreboard with more points, and
Yeah.
so it ended up going our way, and that's been the case over, the last, 15 years. We haven't had a best on best in a long time, but certainly at the junior and the levels coming along, we've seen where this is going and the trajectory that we've had. We've won a number of medals now at the under 20 World Championships, gold in 22, 24, 25. A little bit of a setback this past year. It got upset in the quarters, but there are other really good hockey playing countries too,
Yeah. Yeah.
that are trying to win. And so, you know, I think the the most noticeable thing for us that are in the development space here is it's not who we selected to play for our teams at the Olympics. It's really looking at the players who we left off.
Yeah.
I mean, we left off some extremely good players that didn't make those teams. We left off three top 10 goal scorers in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
And so the depth of our player pool has changed over the last decade or so at the NHL level. We have more high-end players than we ever have. The people, the GM, and the staff that selected those teams, um, you know, made tough choices, which is wonderful. That's the health and strength of your system is providing them with lots of players that they have to make tough choices with. So we're happy with where we're at, but as you said, we're only as good as our last game,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
um, we have games coming up pretty quick. We got to,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well, let's go to because we have people listening to this who won't be hockey people or won't be aware of. Again, I called USA Hockey a 20-year overnight success,
yeah,
but sort of these big changes 20-ish years ago
yeah,
with the implementation of a model and some massive changes in youth hockey
yeah,
that grew viewership, grew numbers, grew the game, helps you develop that depth and helps develop really exceptional high-end players as well. So maybe take people back and just give the
Sure.
overview of the beginning of the ADM and why it came about in the first place.
Well, right around 2008, we had, well, even go back a little farther. Um, in the 1990s, we saw tremendous growth as an organization. There was a lot of growth in minor pro ice hockey. The NHL had grown into some new locations, American League, East Coast League. So, especially in the warm weather states that we have,
The
and
non-traditional states.
the
Yeah, yeah.
non-traditional markets and those things. And so, um, it we saw tremendous growth in numbers. You know, they're building facilities, so there's growth, more kids, more opportunities to play our sport. And so, through that time frame, great growth. And then somewhere in the early 2000s, um, we just saw a decline in male registration, male youth players, boys not signing up. We dropped about 30,000 male youth players in that time frame. Our overall membership was going up
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
our girls numbers and girls growth has been pretty steady over the last 25 years. A couple percentage points every year, 2 to 4% roughly, on average, and just keeps growing. So, which is
Hmm.
fantastic. But that and our adult participation numbers,
Hmm.
we're kind of hiding the decline. And so when we took a step back and did a little bit of a self-analysis on, well, what's going on in our youth space, said, okay, well, maybe some things aren't quite the way they need to be at the younger levels of our sport. We also our world rankings. I think 2008 we were ranked seventh
Hmm.
globally in ice hockey on the men's side, and just not where we wanted to be. So certainly some impetus there to make some change. And we were very fortunate that Big Brother for us, the National Hockey League, was willing to say, you know what, we have 24 franchises in the United States, and we'd like to see a little bit more investment into our backyard in the
Hmm.
growth of the game. So they came along and were able to help us with a little bit of funding, and we brought them an idea and a plan, and they said, you know what, this makes a lot of sense to us. And so they kind of backed us, and in 2009-10, we kind of started our American Development Model program. And 15, 16, 17 years later, whatever we are now, are we perfect? No, I get to kick the tires and look under the hood every day, and we
Hmm.
still have our challenges and troubles, but there are certain things that now are adopted system wide that have made changes that have allowed kids to maybe progress. I believe it was a gentleman by the name of, as far as I can tell, was the first one to make this statement, John Falby. As many as possible for as long as possible in the best environment possible.
Yeah,
And a
that's
lot of
him. Yeah.
us, yeah, a lot of us sport people have grabbed onto that because there's a lot of research and behind that, and you look at it and you say, yeah, well, as many as possible.
Yeah.
Well, how do we help kids get into the game and fall in love with it? We I did a piece recently with Sport New Zealand, and good timing because it was right after we won. Uh, and I told my colleagues down there, I said, well, this whole presentation might not have gone so well had the outcome had we finished fifth.
Yeah, yeah.
It ties in the story, but the persistence and just if you've got a plan and you're going to do good things for kids, just stick with it. I mean, I think the what the difference between us and a lot of organizations was when we said we were going to change our high performance program, we didn't start at the oldest levels.
Right. And trickle
Everyone
down.
wants
You start at the bottom. Yeah.
We started at the bottom. We said, okay, if we want more good players to choose from, then more kids need good experiences in our sport to where they're going to stick with it.
Hmm.
And right from day one, we had this sort of tagline with our ADM, and it was play, love, excel.
Hmm.
And the mission statement was to get more American kids to play, love, and excel in ice hockey.
Hmm.
And the idea, you know, get them involved, let them play. Kids don't come to the sport to drill or they come to play,
Hmm.
have fun, you know, hopefully help them fall in love with it. Because if they don't truly love it, then they're probably never going to put the time in that it takes to excel in the long run. So there's a direct correlation between um, their passion for the sport and who actually turns out.
Yeah.
You don't get good at something if you don't really, really love it.
And you were one of the first American sports, I'll just give there, who really looked at, well, what does play and what does joy look like for kids? And it is number one, right? Not standing in line, right? So
Yes.
I signed up to play the game, not stand in line and have coaches, many of whom don't understand how to carve it up, tell me, oh, I can't play until I can do this. Now,
Yes.
yes, skating helps, right? Like, but still, um, so you looked at that, and also it's not fun if I never touch the puck. So if I'm never involved, so how do we create spaces where I get more touches and more involvement and things like that? So I mean that was one of the first big changes was for the
100%.
young kids, let's make the ice smaller. Let's not have them play the same numbers on the same size ice sheet as the guys in the NHL, which makes perfect sense, right? We don't ask first graders to do calculus or sit at, as Dr. Steve Norris, who you've worked for, says, we don't make them sit at in adult chairs at giant desks because it's too big. But a lot of sports at that time were just saying, well, here's the adult game with the adult rules. Well, now, kids, you just play that too.
Yes. And we've slowly modified some rules for development in our system over time, um, that are different from the senior level, and that's just fine. Does it fit the kids? Does it help them progress and develop the tools and the abilities that they're going to need later on? And, you look at a bit of player autonomy too. When the coach is directing everything, you take away choice for the kid. That's no fun either. So they want to feel like they're in charge a little bit. And when you play, you're the one that gets to make the decisions.
Hmm.
So, I think that's probably the biggest thing that's trickled through our system. Before I started in my current sort of switching to youth hockey, my first
Hmm.
18 years is in my coaching background was at the high performance end.
Hmm.
I was a Division One college coach, and then U.S. national team coach and director of player personnel and all those things for about 8, 9 years. And
Hmm.
I would go around to rinks and I would get to watch what was going on at our youth levels, and um, you would not see a small-sided game in a
Hmm.
lot of the average youth program and practice and training or whatever. You wouldn't see a lot of that back in the early 2000s. It was
Hmm.
very prescriptive. Here's what you do here, and that's not our sport.
Yeah.
Um, we've tried to change and take the messaging around, you know, what is a good training session? What does good practice look like? And look, if it doesn't look like the game, it's
Yeah.
probably not going to transfer very well to the game, right?
Right.
So we want lots of decision making, we want lots of puck touches, we want a little bit of challenge and stretch, and most importantly, we want it to be fun.
Hmm.
So when you walk into a rink now, you're hard pressed not to see at least a fair amount of the training have some type of game and gameplay going on.
Yeah.
Now, are our coaches good at really understanding the nuance of how to work in that environment? Not all of them, no. Some of them just think, well, they're going to go out, they're going to compete hard, and they're going to battle, and that's going to be good, and they're going to
Yeah.
get that out of whatever the small-sided game is that they're doing. All right, well, that's better than standing in the line and maybe doing a drill, but not optimal, but we're getting there. We have some sharp people that are evolving as coaches, and I think that's been the biggest change is, and it's twofold in terms of that whole overall evolution of our sport. And like I said, we had that great growth through the 90s. And through those time frames, development in non-traditional areas, who's coaching your youth teams? Well, a lot of parent volunteer coaches and many that don't have a background in the sport. Now, what we're seeing is through that great growth, those people are bringing their kids back 20 years later,
Hmm.
and they are coming back and they're saying, well, no, I kind of want to coach how I was coached, which was maybe a little bit more gameplay, a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing, in my opinion, a bit of acceleration in some of the good things, or at least the openness to make the change from what historically has been the way people have coached.
Yeah.
So that's the next big thing for us is people bringing their kids back and saying, oh, no, I want to do this, not stand in line.
Yeah, and the reason they're bringing them back is because they had a positive experience. They're not like no one's bringing their kid back that's going, God, I hated hockey, right? It's
Yes.
like, so they had a positive experience and they remember what it was like. And I think sports that are struggling now still have a lot of coaches or who take like the issue is well, if I am a American football coach, right, I'm not picking on that sport, but a lot of people, their memory of that is being a high school senior playing American football, running laps, standing around, and then they bring that to 7-year-old football. And it's like, no, like what made you fall in love when you were 7? Probably looks more like flag football, right, and playing with your buddies than some high school looking practice of drilling with more people standing and uninvolved, right? And so this is the challenge, I think, of everything. So and then coaches are a delivery mechanism, right? Doesn't matter how good our curriculum is or how good it looks on paper if we don't have coaches delivering it. And then I think one thing about let's just use the term games based, even though um,
Yes.
it's much more in depth than that. If I'm basing it on something that looks like the game has natural things that are going to arise that I might not, an amateur, not an amateur, a less experienced coach might not notice it, but it still happened. That
Yes.
decision was still forced. That problem solving was still had to happen, even though I might not have enough experience to have caught it and seen what happened in that moment, right? And that's why it's so much better.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
Again, we're seeing a bit of an evolution. All of this takes time. You know, the same as the success we had at the Olympics. It's years in the making because you don't go from 8 to 23 overnight.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a slow process. And you're bang on with the coaching and the quality of coaching. I think the quality of our youth coaching is as good as it's ever been in our country.
Yeah.
Now, we still get to look under the hood and see what's going on. And are we perfect? No, we've got a long ways to go yet. But those are things that certainly we're happy about. We're happy of the direction that things are moving in.
Yeah.
So,
And I think again, it's never going to be perfect, but we're moving coaching forward and we're looking at these things of saying, well, what's best for the kids? I mean, the problem in North American sports has been it's moved towards what's best for the business of sport and not what's best for the needs of the child in sport, right? And that's where we get stuck. Hey, I lost you. Let me ask that question
yeah,
again. Hold on.
yeah, that so something happened there.
Probably my horrible internet. I bought a new browser or a new modem to
Yeah.
get rid of my old 8-year-old modem, and it's terrible. So let me give a
Doesn't work as
pause.
good.
Let me give a pause here. I'm back on, and let me ask that again. So I think, Ken, what I see, so often from a coaching standpoint is, people trying hard, right? They're doing a good job. They're doing their best. We're giving them tools. Maybe they're missing a little bit of the nuance, but overall, we're delivering something. I had a coaching mentor of mine who was a World Cup coach and a national team coach, an Olympic coach, and a Division I college coach, and he helped me. And one of the things he said to me early on, which has stuck with me, was, would you want to be a player in that practice? And if the answer is yes, then it's probably a pretty good practice. But if you're like, man, I wouldn't want to be part of that practice, you probably shouldn't do that again. Like, yes,
Hmm.
if I'm an American football coach or a rugby coach and I need to teach proper safety of tackling, it might be a little boring in the moment, but that's really important, right? But for the most part, if I don't want to be a player in that practice, my players probably didn't want to be a player in that practice either, right?
No, 100%. And it's especially when we're talking about children. It's a long time at my age from when I was a little kid, and to put those kid-colored glasses back on and see the world through their eyes is difficult for a lot of us as adults. We get inundated with what we see on TV and what we think good coaching looks like, and or what we remember about our experiences, and we said, well, that was good enough for me, or whatever. And but you're right, coaches come at this. Every coach comes at this from a genuine place of wanting to, do good things for their kids. They really do. It's just maybe a lack of understanding on, you know, what good really looks like.
What good looks like. And going back to that, well, okay, what does good look like? I mean, we live in a world right now where we can deliver practice plans pretty easily. I don't think there's a coach out there who doesn't under can't go get practice activities. So, but when we know that really coaching effectiveness is determined by interpersonal skills and knowledge of self, how do we weave that into our coaching education? Because it's really hard to measure or evaluate someone on how do you communicate, how do you look in the eye, how do you inspire. So, what are you guys
Yeah.
doing?
Well, you bring up probably the $64,000 question. You're
Mm.
right. It's the what to coach is readily accessible, and look, there's varying degrees of content on the internet. Some of it I think is really good and some not so good, but you can find that pretty easy. But the how to coach skills are extremely important. And I think one of the things that we notice too is sometimes the the youth coach that loud, maybe doesn't have the self-reflection skills, doesn't have the self-awareness. Like they just come in, they're the bull in the china shop. They think they are doing a great job. And yet the coach that is really self-reflective, is considering the kid, they're really hard on themselves, they're critical, and a lot of them are going, I don't know if I'm good at this, maybe I shouldn't coach. Those are actually the ones that we want involved.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the ones we want to spend time with and grow, because they're going to be the ones that think about the kids, think about things from a deeper perspective. That's what our high level coaches do.
Yeah.
They're thinking about the relationships. You know, everything they say to their athletes. I've got good friends that are in the coach with a long time ago. They're head coaches of the National Hockey League, and I can tell you they don't say anything to their players that is not well thought out ahead of time.
Yeah.
Right? So how do we help grow those coaches? And we've taken in changes in our coaching program to follow along with, even some really basic things, and we would call them our how to coach skills. But well, how do you do a quality explanation?
Hmm.
Coaches are going to explain things to kids all the time. Do you plan what you're going to say ahead of time? Do you gain their attention? Do you keep it short? Do you keep it simple? And do you check for understanding before you
Yeah.
let them wander away? And there's some simple processes around explaining, demonstrating the things that we would maybe do around our youth teams, that if we can get coaches maybe to step back sometimes and focus on themselves
Yeah.
and their delivery, they're going to start to be better. You know, as coaches, I think we're always really good at reflecting on our players. We're not so good at taking a step back and reflecting on, well, how did I do today? How did I coach today?
Yeah.
And so that's where we've maybe spent a little bit more time in our coaching education program
Yeah.
uh, than we had in the past. And
Yeah.
that's been a bit of an evolution for us too. But the how to coach is far more important than the what to coach.
Yeah. And I would add in, I had a portion of my book, Every Moment Matters. So what does it feel like to be coached by me? Right. So
Hmm.
that's like goes in with the how to coach, how do I connect? But what does this feel like for them? Because how it feels is how they're going to function. Now we have this challenge as well that goes on to a parent education standpoint, that many parents see the coach who's standing there yelling, screaming, joysticking kids around the ice, stealing reps, stealing decisions, is like, look at him coaching, look at her coaching. Yet the players who are developing faster, and so what we're seeing in that moment is performance. Yes, the kids are doing it because they're told, but there's no thought and there's no recollection. And 2 weeks from now, there's no recall because they never learned it in the first place. So that quiet coach who's more reflective and lets the player make the decision and then helps them say, was that the right decision? What did you see? What could you have done differently? We have parents going, well, they're not helping. Yeah, in the moment they're not, but they're helping long term. They're developing the 18-year-old hockey player.
Well, I would suggest they're helping and develop the 10-year-old too.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
kids will pick up on things pretty rapidly if they're allowed to. You know, the first example is really common, and everyone thinks that, oh, look at that guy coach, right?
Yeah.
That's poor coaching,
Yeah.
in our opinion. It's not, you're not developing your athletes
Yeah.
because in the middle of the game or whatever, they need to be able to problem solve. They need to be able to do things on their own in the moment. And there's lots of ways to solve a problem. There's no one right way to
Yeah.
do things. Even, you know, I think this is another piece that we've spent time with in our early on in our coaching program, but even from a technical ability standpoint, we've had to try and take a step back and get coaches to understand that technique is not skill.
Yeah.
Like, you can go around all the cones you want, but
Yeah.
that's not making a player skillful.
Yeah.
They have to be able to make adjustment in context to opponents, teammates, everything else. And nothing happens exactly the same way twice.
Yeah.
Might happen close, but never exactly.
Yeah.
So where's the variability in what you're doing? Where's the ability for a kid to start to make adjustments and then to adjust and interact with the things they're going to need to interact with in the game?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. It's a perception
it's
action sport. And
100%.
and only perception action activities are going to transfer from practice on Tuesday to the game on Saturday. And if those opportunities do not exist, or I am mandating when this happens, you do this, then that player is not going to learn. And yet, who are the players that we value the most, pay the most money, draft the highest, is the ones who do the unexpected thing at the unexpected time. Those are the ones we love. Those are the ones the fans come to see. And yet, we tend to coach that out of kids instead of coaching it into them.
Yes. And I can say that even in our sport, we see a lot of good players, but their ability, they get to a certain point, and it's almost like their ability to adapt has been, you know,
Coached out of
sucked
them.
out of them, coached out of them. Like
Yeah.
and the ones that are able to continue to adapt are the ones that evolve and can play at a high level.
Yeah, well, like you guys made a rule change. I remember when you first told me this story. years ago in youth hockey, getting rid of, icing or, the ability when you're a man down to ice the puck and not have a face off in your zone. And you told me that. So tell our listeners the story behind it because it's
Yeah,
such a
so
great story. Why does that rule exist in the NHL, and
yes,
why it has nothing to do with youth hockey?
the evolution of rules in sport come along, sometimes from weird things. And the National Hockey League, we've had pro hockey in the United in North America for well over 100 years.
Yeah.
So um, somewhere around in the 19, well, the rule that we have during regulation play, 5-on-5 when everybody's at equal strength, is that you can't just take the puck and throw it all the way down to the other end to relieve pressure because it's a dumb, unskillful play. It doesn't require much, and it makes for a pretty boring ice hockey game if all players do is just throw it down to the other end.
Yeah.
So when you do that, you get a face off back in your end. That's the penalty is to come back to your end and give the other team a territorial advantage for a face off.
Mm.
Well, somewhere in the 1950s, the Montreal Canadiens and the rule changed. Well, they were scoring so often when they had the man advantage on a penalty
Mm.
that the league said, well, geez, we got to do something to slow down the Canadians. So what happens if we just let teams ice the puck, throw it all the way down, and there won't be a whistle.
Only when they're a man down. Yeah.
Only when they're a man down. And so it's the first rule and maybe the only rule in sport that we can come up with or think about that when a team actually gets penalized, you make a rule change to give the penalized team an advantage.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Doesn't that go against what you would think of normally for a game? And so one of the things that we thought about was, well, at a young age, we don't want players to just grab the puck and blindly throw it away.
Hmm.
We want them to be able to get their head up, look around, make a play. They can still chip the puck down the ice, but now maybe do it with a little bit of touch,
Yeah.
a little bit of feel, put it into a space where the other team has to either retreat for it or my teammate can get to it. But there's now a thought process and a bit of skill and
Yeah.
execution that's required because we don't want players to just, in a panic, get all the puck and blindly throw it away,
Right.
which is what they would do at a young age. So we're trying to put in rules that incentivize them to do things that are going to and develop tools and abilities that are going to allow them to progress at a higher level.
Right. Because just
And
blindly clearing a puck when you get to the NHL, no problem. We could teach you that. We actually don't have to teach you that. Like,
it's
yeah.
it's like in soccer, the strategy, just get the ball and boot it down the field when you're young.
Yeah.
Don't think about it. Just kick it down the field and maybe
Yeah.
we'll race for it.
And hope our one fast guy, one time out of 20, gets it.
Yep. And while that solves a problem in the moment,
Yeah.
it doesn't help those players actually progress through the sport and be good later on.
Yeah.
It actually hurts them
Yeah.
because they don't develop the tools when they should be developing them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's too late later on to come back and give it to them later.
Yeah.
And then we changed a few others, that the NHL and at the performance level, it's an entertainment sport. So, keeping the game rolling along a little bit faster and some things, we took away the tag up offsides. It was a rule that was played in. And we even see that the number of defensemen that we have in the National Hockey League that have a very different tool set than the other players around. Like we have a couple of players that they're very much unlike anybody else.
Hmm.
And even our neighbors to the north, Hockey Canada, has come back and told us, it said, I might attribute a little bit of that to one of your rule changes because it's different here. Our defensemen are allowed to just grab it and throw it away in
Yeah.
certain situations.
And this
So
is this is where I think governing bodies can make it. We can't influence everything, but we can do things
yep,
like make rules that that mandate certain things that create certain behaviors that over time create better players, more retention, more interest, all these sort of things.
Yeah, for us, we would love to see, and we've been moving in this direction, but that pretty much 14 and younger, we have some different rules for our athletes. After that, our development system's a bit fractured in our country, where some kids go play Federation high schools, some play high school under our auspice, some play, club hockey, some play the junior high. There's
Yeah.
a lot of different things going on and different rule books that come into play. So we're okay with at that point. All
Yeah.
right, want to start moving closer to emulate what you see at the NHL level, because to me the NHL rules actually allow for a less sophisticated form of the game.
Yeah.
So okay, you want to at those ages, go ahead, but good coaches
Yeah.
will still put some constraints on their players, and say, hey, from a development standpoint, we are not going to do certain things. Like, I had a college coach that would not allow us as defensemen on a breakout in our end to rim the puck, to throw it around the boards.
Yeah. He made you carry it out or pass.
No, make a direct pass to a teammate,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because that sets our teammates up for success. They're not having to cry it off the boards and
Yeah. Yeah.
put themselves in a bit. And so we developed a tool set, you know, Division One NCAA championship at a tiny school that, probably should never win a national championship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, these are the types of things that we were encouraged to play under that really made a difference in our ability to exit our zone cleanly, far, far better than other teams.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just kind of like, no, this is the team rule. You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, right. And so even at a
And
division,
you have to, as a coach, be willing that the puck might end up in the back of your net once in a while
100%.
in order to get enough reps that in a big moment we might pull this off.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, uh, it works at every level. It's just, is the coach confident enough in what they're doing to say, no, this is going to make a difference.
Right. Or how important is the outcome, or how do I define winning here, right? Isn't just winning the game on the weekend or the tournament. Yes, we want to win, but the purpose is bigger and the purpose is developing long term. Let me ask you one more coaching question. You and I were talking before we started recording about we're recording this at the end of March 2026. The NCAA basketball tournament's going on. There was just a big hub-dub 10 days ago or whatever. Women's basketball, coach of Maryland, I think it's Brenda Fries is her name, getting very up in the face of a player on TV, and a discussion back and forth. Is that great coaching? Is that abusive coaching? All this sort of stuff. And I loved it, because, as you said to me before, what she said is, because I believe in you. Right. So, that's the stage. And I can put a link in the show notes to anyone who hasn't seen this. But this was on a big stage, NCAA tournament game, a player who is in a downward spiral. So just your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, what does good coaching look like?
Yeah.
And this is one of those cases. There's lots of examples of what bad coaching looks like.
Yeah.
And I can see where somebody that at a glance comes along and all they do is see somebody, talking loud, speaking very loud at one of their athletes and
Loud,
going, oh,
close,
that's
in
very
her face.
close in their
Yeah.
face and going, oh, this is because there are a lot of examples of where that's bad coaching.
Yeah.
But it all stems from the relationship that you've established with your players. Like, what is the expectation of that athlete? Does the athlete want to be coached like that?
Yeah.
And if you and I have a very close personal relationship and we're in a building of 15,000 whatever spectators, well, the only way they hear you is if you're close and in their face.
Right.
It's the message that's being communicated.
Right.
It's the I believe in you.
Hmm.
Here's this, right? And that athlete's not receiving that the way that maybe people at a glance are thinking that they're receiving it.
Exactly.
Right? It's all about the relationship that as a coach, you can be stern, but it's all in the delivery and what you're saying.
We all say demanding, not demeaning.
Yes, of
Right.
course.
Yeah, yeah.
Like this is a I care about you. I care about you in the moment. I believe in you. But the expectation here is X, Y, Z, and you're capable of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not asking you to do anything that you're not capable of.
Yeah.
And they have that relationship.
Yeah, and that
So to
as
me,
the
that's good
athlete
coaching.
says, as she said afterwards, I asked her to coach me that way. When I transferred to
Yes,
Maryland, I said, I want you to coach me hard because one of the things I struggle with is I spiral downward. I miss two shots, I have a turnover, and all of a sudden my game goes. And this is what had happened to her in this moment.
that's right.
And she said I want to be coached that way. And as a autonomous human being, she has the right to say I want to be coached that way. And it had a positive effect because she wasn't demeaning her, she wasn't trying to embarrass her, she was trying to break a pattern and get her back out there.
And the skill of the coach is to know where all your athletes sort of lie on the spectrum,
Yeah.
right? Because that method might not have worked with one of their other athletes, and they would know, or at
Yeah.
least a good coach has the emotional intelligence to know. Like, as we
Yeah.
said before, that's a really, really important skill is to know when and where and what's necessary for each individual your athlete. Like this is for me one of the secret sauces to coaching, and it's the every team has a bell curve shaped sort of. If you look at your players, they all fall on that bell shaped curves of performance abilities, right? You have the bulk of your athletes, because of the level that you're at, are in the middle. You always have a few that are sort of at one end of the spectrum that are maybe a little more precocious than the others. And then you have some others that probably need a little more support than the others. And the secret sauce is not to just coach to the group in the middle. It's how do you coach every athlete on your team, not just from a physical ability performance ability standpoint, but from an emotional, social, cognitive standpoint. Like what can they handle? What do they like? Right? It's on those ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And so you have to figure out like how do you advance that your entire group? And so it's yes, we coach in our sport, we coach teams,
Yeah.
but we coach a bunch of individuals in a team environment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also, Ken, like what's really important for people to understand is what I say, don't be an ESPN coach. Don't be a coach who watches the 10-second clip on ESPN and says, this is what I'm going to do. And so, there's a podcast guest we've had here, Betsy Butterick, just did a great book on communication. She's been public about this, so I'll share it. She works with Maryland basketball. She knows the inside of that. And so when the criticism was coming out, she's like, no, you don't understand the relationship that this coach and this player have and what happens every day in practice for a year so that
Mhm.
in that moment that's the way the conversation in front of 15,000 in a loud arena happened, but everything that went into it. And so Betsy's line, which I love, is tough love is okay as long as you bring the love before you bring the tough, right?
Mhm.
The problem is when a coach sees that and goes out to their 9-year olds and starts yelling and screaming and says, well, it worked for Maryland basketball without developing the relationship, without connecting, without showing your players, I believe in you and I'm coaching you this way because I know you can do this. And that takes time. And that's hard to teach in coaching education.
Well, and it's hard to do in our youth environment to the So, and I learned a few lessons along those lines where, I was in a professional coaching environment where, I'm around our athletes all the time. We're on bus trips, we're eating in hotels and restaurant. There's all this time away from the rink, around the locker room and where we're allowed to have some of this relationship building that doesn't just happen at the field or on the ice or on the court, right? In the youth environment, your kids show up, they jump on the ice, and you don't have much time with them. And we're very fortunate as a sport that we have a sort of a locker room uh, to go to. I think I see in soccer, when my kids were young, they just showed up in their kit and
And then left. Yeah,
jumped
yeah,
out of
yeah.
the car, ran out in the field, went the way they went.
Yeah.
So there's so little time for coaches to build the relationships needed to be able to connect and with your kids. And I learned that lesson kind of the hard way when I first kind of went back and started coaching youth youth kids. And it was like, wow, where do I get this connection time that and I didn't probably do as good a job. I thought I was trying to, but I needed to take a step back and even do more and make it more central to what we do because it's the relationship first. And that hit me right over the head when I went from the sort of professional environment back to start in with kids. And then, oh my gosh, when you're dealing with even teenagers, they're a little closer. They're not adults yet, but they're getting there. Or college kids, they're not adults yet either. Even though their age says they are, they still
Hmm.
make some choices sometimes that aren't as good. But you go back and you coach 10-year-olds or whatever, and wow,
Hmm.
it's just different to put your head in that mindset. You as a coach have to work really, really hard at it.
Yeah.
And then the expectation of the parents is that you are the NHL coach that showed up and you're gonna have that kind of impact on the kids.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a really challenging environment.
It is. And that's why I think youth coaches have to be masters of connection, masters of those small moments. Because I'm not going to have a half-hour meeting with every kid once a month like I might as a pro coach or a college coach. So I have to be really good in the 10-second interactions, in the warm-up, when that kid is out of an activity, just coming over, hey, how's it going? Hey, how'd your concert go last night that so you missed practice? Or hey, how's everything going at home? I know your parents, it's been tough or whatever. It's like those little moments that we can
Mhm.
connect. Like, hey, nice haircut, man. That looks great. Oh, I love your new shoes. I love
Mhm.
that's a cool new stick. Whatever it is, like these little
Whatever it is.
moments are the
Yeah,
key.
well, and just to tell everybody how important it, like I have some colleagues at the NHL level, at the NHL level, their team is charting how often coaches have touch points with players. Even if it's just a bump in practice where,
Yeah.
hey, it's just whatever it is, they keep track.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're monitoring it because that's how important it is in the success for them as coaches and with the team and everything else is
Yeah.
so obviously with the youth level we don't have the ability to monitor it as closely, but
But we can
that's how
talk about
important it is.
how important that is. And this goes also to this next level of team leaders, team captains, right? So Jerry and I are about to publish a new book on being a great team captain. And one of the important things, like, and we interviewed a bunch of people on, well, what does it take to be a team captain and what are the qualities and the responsibilities and the challenges you face? And it's a really cool book, but one of the things that stands out to me, the basketball player Steve Nash, in the years he was a couple of years he was the NBA MVP. There was a university group, studying him the whole year or studying the NBA, and they looked at all the film and all the games. He led the league in physical touches, fist bumps, pats, high fives, whatever, right? So Evan's like, what a great leader. But that little connection, that little fist bump, that little what's up, that little I see you, he led the league in physical in interactions, which made him a leader, which made his teammates want to play for him because that guy sees me, that guy cares about me. What a hugely important thing that now NHL teams are seeing, but it shouldn't just be coach to player. It should also
No,
be my team leaders, my senior players down to the younger players. There's a rookie coming up. What does he do? Right. I wrote a chapter in this book on when the Penguins drafted Sidney Crosby. Here he has to come save the franchise. He's 19 years old. Well, he went and lived with Mario Lemieux, right? Talk about saying, hey, we value you, we invested in you, and we're going to mentor you and not just dump all this on a 19-year-old and say, save the franchise.
yep. And we do that too often in our sport. Or even you go back down to the youth level and it's, oh, well, we're going to pick the kid that is the best player. And so here, you get to be the captain.
Yeah.
Well, does that player actually have the capability to be a good captain? Do they want that extra responsibility? Now, they may say they want it, but
They
these are the
really want
growing
it. Do they
pains.
understand what they
Do
say
they
they want?
understand it? That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And so, it's so much in sport is not the technical tactical in
Yeah.
the success. Yet that's where we all gravitate a lot of times is the technical tactical.
Yeah.
This other stuff is the secret sauce.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's what separates the good from the great. And, so
Yeah. Yeah. Let me bring this around full circle to maybe some of the challenges that you now face because now we've got, like you said, almost 20 years of an ADM
mhm,
and that has I don't want to say culminated because we're still moving forward, but has
yeah,
resulted in a first time triple gold medal in the past Olympics and Paralympics, right? So this is working. And at the same time, there is a lot of movement in youth hockey that goes against the principles that built this, right?
100%.
So I am out there traveling and in certain cities
Yeah,
I talk to people who own or run hockey clubs, and I say, "Why are you playing full ice hockey at 8 years
yeah,
old?" And they say to me, "I totally get it. I totally get it's not good for the kids, but if we don't do it, the families will leave, and my I'll go out of business. I got to pay for my rink.
it's,
I got to do this.
yep,
How do we combat that? Because it's not like we have all the evidence, we have all the information, and then we have a bunch of parents who want to see their 8-year-old on a full sheet of ice because he's or she's bigger, faster, stronger, and look at all that space, and yet they're shortchanging their kid."
yeah. Well, if you figure out how to solve
I
it,
was
let
gonna
me
say
know. Like, this is
this is the $1 million
it's,
question, not the sixty-four
yeah,
thousand dollar question.
and everybody comes at this, the people that push for it, they're doing it because, for the most part, not everybody, because some look at it and say, "Hey, I can sell against this,
Yeah,
so I can aggregate, players and whatever." So there are a few people that, but a lot of people still they want what's best for their kid. They just don't know. Um, they they trust. They'll see a kid that happens to be precocious, and they'll go to that kid's parents says, "Well, what are you doing with your kid?" Well, he happened to be X, Y. Well, then I'm going to do that too. Well, that kid happened to be playing 5 years. He started when he was 4,
yeah,
and he's got 5 years of experience now versus your kid that's got one. Well, he's going to be better,
yeah,
right? Like at some of these ages. So, we try our best to communicate. We try and put rules in that, again, our playing rules around 8 and under are half ice, cross ice. Um, you know, it, all we can do is try and inform as best we can. There are people that, again, do this for the wrong reasons, again, for money. In youth sport, not just ice hockey, if you're willing to write a check, there's a whole lot of people that are going to that are willing to tell you your child is special.
And
He's
willing to give your child whatever experience you think is best for them, even though it might not
Yep,
be. Um,
100%.
yeah, and this is our biggest challenge. And you're right. I don't have an answer. You don't have an answer, except how do we keep informing? How do we keep spreading the message? And I do think there's a small percentage of people who are, let's just call them, bad actors who just it's like, hey,
Yep.
it's money. And I think a lot of other people who would say, I would rather do this other thing, but I just can't. Right.
What we find is, look, it's hard work to do youth sports well.
Hmm.
It's hard. Like anything that's done at a high level and done well is difficult. It's not
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
It's easy to just go, oh, this
Yeah.
is the system, this is the structure, because it is set up, at 10U, 12 later on for us to play in those other environments easily. It's the
Yeah.
way rinks are designed. Like it's difficult to do some of these things. It takes a little bit more work to do things
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So, I think some people just revert back to, well, this is just
No, it
it's
is.
hard to be organized. It's hard to,
There's like a
so
great West Point prayer of like, let me have the courage to choose the hard right and not the easy wrong. And this is what we
yeah.
need more of. Are you as an organization thinking of using the platform of some of these now players who grew up in a system who now
Yes.
just have made the top and say how important it was to play cross ice hockey, how important it was to play in tight small spaces, how important it was to just play and get a lot of reps because it made them better. Because I think that's the thing that maybe pushes it over the top of like,
Yes.
you need this as part of your games model. It doesn't mean that you've destroyed a kid because they played a game full ice, but it can't be your only games model.
Correct. And we've even seen some of our affiliate organizations that are actually gravitating to using a reduced space game model at older ages, at 10U and beyond. Like when we first started, we knew, again, lots of research from our Swedish and Finnish colleagues in what actually happens in every situation when you start changing player numbers, ice surface sizes. I mean, we've done all the background on this, net sizes, all these things to know what's actually going to elicit the best responses from development.
Hmm.
But culturally, it was too big a bite of the apple to take it on at that particular time. And we're now we see where this is being adopted, from a grassroots level on some of these things. And we're not saying don't blow up everything. We're saying, like, could you start to weave in these other game formats
Yeah.
at those ages, because it's really important and it actually will have, real benefits for your players from a development standpoint.
Yeah.
So there is some evolution to what we're doing as well, which is fantastic. But you can't ever take your eye off the ball with the new families that are coming in and what's going on. And
Yeah.
so, it's like going back being a college coach. As many times as I go through the recruiting process with our college athletes, you always had to kind of take a step back and say, well, for these kids and these families, 99% of the time, it's their first time,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So you have to approach it with the same vigor, with the same, you know, the same level of support in what we do. And, you know, over time it wears on our volunteers, it wears on
Mhm.
our people out there. So how do we keep supporting the people that are delivering on a day-to-day, level? So
Yeah.
these are the challenges that we face. We keep looking at different ways to do things, but if you can find the answer, please let me know.
Well, I think
That would,
you're a model organization, not just for other American sports organizations, but For, like you said, international organizations, they always talk about you. And I've gotten to know John Lind from Sweden Hockey, and he's been on the podcast, and we got to present together. And he just sent me a couple days ago their newest research with Amanda Visick on
Yep.
fun and joy. And
Yep.
replicating this research of what drives joy and retention, and it's so critical. It's the same things, right? Positive coaching, positive team dynamics, right? A good environment, right? Not
Well,
standing
and
in line, not focusing on winning, not sitting on the bench so my team can win. And yeah,
well, they're an unbelievable organization. The Swedish Ice Hockey Association does an incredible job. John's a real leader
yeah,
in, in the space of advancing our sport. I mean, we share research. And then one of the things that's changed around our organization is we actually not only are we going out and trying to keep abreast of what's going on in sport, but we are now looking at doing our own research in areas that we think are really, really important, to help, whether it's the biological maturity of our athletes and how
yeah,
we help there, whether it's I mean, you mentioned Amanda Visick and her research. Well, Amanda's research assistant back in the day when they first did their initial Fun Maps research is Heather Mannix. Heather works for us as our manager of education, is helping us put together programming for our coaches, put together programming for our officials
yeah.
as well. But so we're trying to tap into some of the brightest people that are out there. We have projects going on with Michigan State University, with West Virginia, with
Hmm.
uh, University in Sweden, with University in Norway, with wherever we can find the very best people that are doing research around our sport to try and bring things back to our coaches.
Right.
So,
Right. Because if
and
you're
help
going to
deliver.
win the next set of gold medals at world championships or whatever, you can't do what we just did in 2026. You got to move ahead.
Well,
You got to keep going.
Salt Lake is 8 years away.
Hmm.
Home Olympics, very important to our Olympic organization, very important to us to do well when the games are here. I mean, the players that are going to start to have an impact. There's some that are still the young guys in the NHL now, but it's our teenage athletes right now that are going to
Some of
matriculate.
them are in middle school.
Yes, 8 years away. Those are the players that are going to be on those teams.
Yeah.
So we do look at this in where are we going to be in 10 years?
Yeah.
And so how do we, and change, as we said it earlier on, change happens slowly in these big systems because it takes a long time for a kid to get from, little kid ice hockey to, the highest levels of the sport. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Well, Ken, listen, I truly, you were one of the first people I met when I started doing this, and you've always been such a giver of your time and your knowledge and your enthusiasm to me. But I know to so many other sports, it's hard to go to a progressive coaching conference and not see Ken Martel on the speaking circuit somewhere because of all you give. So, on behalf of I think so many kids in so many sports, thank you to you personally, and then of course to USA Hockey for really it's like let's just make it better for all the kids, and it's gonna raise our boat as well.
that's right. I appreciate John. Appreciate you and as well, just, I mean, the voice you carry, and spreading really, really good things to a wide audience of people that are going to be around youth sports and affect kids. I mean, we're no different than baseball, soccer, football, any other lacrosse, any of the other sport in our country. We want good things for our children, and so
Yeah.
you're helping spread the message that hopefully we can do better things. I think there's good things going on across our country, but can we always be better?
Yeah, thank you. And I think every time I speak to you, you always go back to, yeah, well, it's good, but it's not perfect, and we're trying to get better. And so I appreciate that about you as well. Ken, thank you so much for being on the Way of Champions, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Wow. Thanks again to Ken Martel from USA Hockey. You can obviously look up USA Hockey and just, find all the links and all the stuff that they put out on YouTube and everything for free from a coaching standpoint, from a coaching certification standpoint. But they're definitely one of the most progressive organizations looking at what's new, what's next, how do we keep moving forward, how can we be better. Well, what an incredible, I think they're just an example for other sports to never rest on their laurels. And even though we might be from a high performance standpoint at the height of what they've done, they also know that 8 years from now in Salt Lake, when we really want to win a gold medal in the home Olympics, we can't do what we're doing today. And we have to combat some of this youth pressure to promote the business of sport over the needs of children in sport. And so I hope you truly, truly enjoyed that. Okay. As I sign off, thank you to our sponsor, Zone 14 Coaching, talking about self-reflection and journaling as coaches and athletes, zone14coaching.com. Check them out. Thank you to Sprocket Sports for all they do as well. Thank you to our Patreon podcast champions. And thank you to all of you who order our books, who listen to this podcast, who support us by leaving reviews or sharing this episode if you liked it. We truly, truly appreciate you because your influence is never neutral. So go out there, change the world, make a difference. See you again next week, everybody.